School Board's public meeting for Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. We have a full board with us here tonight with Dulcie LaPoma, Rob Nato, Norm Kupol, Andrea Folsom, myself, Jim O'Brien. And we're joined by our student reps, Max Aframe and Juliet Shahadi, who saved the board chair from being very late for this meeting. So thank you very much, Juliet. And we're also joined by Jody Condon, Michelle Clark. Thank you.
Okay.
Mike Flynn. Oh, I was going to call you Mr. What do you call him? Mr. O'Neill. Mike Flynn. Thank you very much. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Rob, will you lead us off?
Sure. What's wrong? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We can get to.
You're going to bring the flag next time.
So we have approval of meeting minutes from our last meeting of September 14th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And then we have non-public meeting minutes of the same date, September 14th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on those? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. So our next item are comments from our student reps. So Max and Juliet, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. So for comments for this week, I think the student body is really excited to get into the science classrooms. Today for physics, instead of having a class, we were just setting up the classrooms, which was really exciting. They look great, and I can't wait to get started in there.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Tomorrow I have my first class in a science room, which is chemistry, so I'm excited for that. And then I just want to reiterate my support of wearing masks. I think we've seen a lot more cases this past week in the community and the schools, and I don't know, I'm really happy with the way things are going. I think everybody's doing a lot better this year, mentally, emotionally, physically, the works, and I just appreciate that. So thank you to the teachers in the school for making that happen.
Yep. And in terms of homecoming, we're definitely disappointed that we couldn't have it due to the rain, but we're hopeful that we can reschedule for a later date. I think the student council is working on that, so we're very excited for that.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Is there any chance, and it's sort of a spur of the moment, is there any chance the board maybe at the end of the meeting go check out the science labs? Is that all right?
Yeah. I just wanted to thank the science teachers for their flexibility. It has certainly been a challenge. The things that they've had to do and how they've had to work with our students. I know we said the students are resilient, but the science faculty have done a phenomenal job. We're all excited. The high school level should be making their way in today, tomorrow. Middle school anticipated for the end of the week, and as we just try and wrap up those final things. But thank you to them for their outstanding flexibility for sure.
Nice. And so if any board member, after we adjourn, if you want to go check out the science labs, that'd be kind of cool to see.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, school board comments. If anybody has any? Quiet bunch, all right. And so we'll move on then to under our current business. We're a little ahead of schedule. This is amazing. Safe learning update. We're going to have Mike, Mr. Flynn will start, and then we'll, I think, have a discussion around some of the metrics that we've been talking about with Dulcie and Norm. So thank you, Mike.
Sure. It's been it was nice to hear the students talk about things that are settling in regards to the safe learning. I think we're all finding our way here at all buildings, and it's been kind of nice. I think this was the first week where I know Jody and I sat on Monday and said it feels kind of like a groove, right? Disruptions have been minimal, participation's been high. The good things, if you've been paying attention to the dashboard, we've been floating between 2 and 1 and 2. We were at a high point of 4 at one point, but our nurse team has done a phenomenal job of working with families and in helping them get the needs that whatever they need, if it's a testing kids or helping with their students. So the discussion, a couple points. We talked about pool testing last week, and I brought, there's information in your packets for you to review. Talked about a couple things, actually 2 weeks ago, but more specifically, we met with, there were 4 vendors that were approved by the state of New Hampshire. One has actually been eliminated. As I mentioned a couple weeks ago, the things that were occurring with that vendor obviously led to them no longer being supported. There's another vendor that's probably borderline. So good news is the 2 that we're leaning to are not any of that. So in your packet is the UNH lab and then Ginkgo's. There's a significant difference between those 2. Ginkgo's, I keep calling it Ginkgo's.
Ginkgo.
Okay. Yep, so they are strictly pool testing, right? So that would be, I want to be very clear, everything's opt-in, very, very clear on that. But they hire nurse practitioners or nurses, actual nurses that come into the classroom, can be self-swab or swab delivered depending on parent choice, so forth and so on. And they go into a singular tube. That tube goes out to the lab. If anyone comes back positive, they then return and would test individually. The significant difference between that and UNH, they work through a paramedic company. Paramedic company essentially comes to the property. Students, let's just say, let's use the high school as an example. If this was going to be the area, they would set up shop here. Students would come individually, swab, and you're getting individual test results back. When you go back talking about differences, Ginkgo says that they're in and out of each classroom between 6 to 8 minutes, where UNH said they can take up to an hour to test about 100 students.
Yeah.
So there's differences there. So these are the things I've talked about, the disruptions of coming in, school day, students learning. So working with the nurses, we're going to try and figure out what will fit best for our buildings. You have to select one. You can't use 2. And once we figure that out, it takes about 2 weeks. There's consent forms that will go out. We'd have to bring those back and kind of move on. The other apprehension I had 2 weeks ago was about turnaround time. So Ginkgo's lab is outside of Boston. So if they test us at 8 in the morning, they guarantee a 24-hour turnaround from when it shows up to the lab. So depending on where we are, so if it gets there at noon, they'll guarantee a noon the next day. UNH, their lab is up in, yeah, it's in New Hampshire. How about that? But it's that way. And they have their 24 hours from that. So if they test on Tuesday, it'd be midnight by Wednesday, so 36. But they're saying, again, they're saying that it can come back far sooner. So just trying to work through those kinks to make sure that we select the right one that's best for our students, and then we can start with offering opt-ins for that. Completely covered by the state, no fiscal costs at all to the districts. That's one of the state-funded programs that where those monies are going. So, and the good news is, another one of my concern was it tying up our business office for billing or anything like that, but it's nothing. It is strictly done whatever vendor is selected. So we're currently partnered with UNH for the individual kits that we've had since the beginning of the year. If we were to make that switch, they actually do all that work too. So we're working on trying to narrow it down to make sure, again, I have real concerns about who was coming in, the turnaround time, and the disruption of learning, excuse me. So I'm working on trying to finalize that, and then we can work on communicating that out to families. Questions?
I have a question. So you said with Ginkgo? Is that how you say it? You said it's about 12 minutes to do a whole class?
6 to 8, 6 to 10, 6 to 10.
So it's opt-in for the family, and let's say we only have 10 students or 12 students per class. Would that mean that it would only end up being like 4 minutes then, because we're not doing the whole entire class?
Yeah, it's
So we would
both
have-
programs are dependent on opt-in, right? So
Yeah.
the UNH said they gave us an hour per 100 kids. It's what they've been seeing. Obviously, if you have less, it's less, and the opt-in numbers really vary by district. I mean, they have a 3% opt-in on one, and they have a 60% at another district. So it's totally driven by really how many people are participating in the students. The classroom model is obviously different, right? They're coming in instruction has to stop. They have to, whether it's 3 or 10, you can't teach while people are being swabbed. So that would be a complete stop of instruction. And then if you're doing, let's say, the setup through UNH, students would be leaving classrooms, so they would individually be losing instruction however long it took to go down, get swabbed and go back. So.
Two more questions.
Sure.
Okay. My second question, is there a way of us being able to talk to any other school districts that's currently doing this to kind of get a feel for how it's been working for them and how they've kind of implemented it, kind of like get a feel for, you know.
Yeah, so that was one of my first questions. So we have area superintendents meetings where 20 of us participate, and there are no districts doing this in our area. It's called the Southwest Superintendents Region. In fact, we were the only district already doing individual testing, where Kearsarge was the only one that was moving towards it, and other districts were actually asking us how we implemented it, which is a good thing. So I did send that question out to, you have Southeast, South Central, things like that. The thing what's interesting when you're meeting with the vendors, they're not really providing the districts which they're working with, and that to me is just vendor work,
Yeah.
So we're trying to work through that, trying to get in touch with people that have successfully implemented it. I have a hard time when they reference states down south or Midwest. Ginkgos has been doing it in Arizona since May. Again, I hate to say it, but what have you done here? I think we're just a totally different demographic and area. So working on that, I'm definitely trying to connect to make sure that we work through any bumps and bruises that the other districts have already, played the game, so to speak.
Can I just follow up?
Yeah.
So the vendor won't provide other districts in the state?
So it's just an interesting question when you're asking them, because they'll say, well, we're working with 39 other districts. Well, what are they? And they're not typically. I just think they're so early in the stages. They probably don't even feel comfortable, because they may have gone through a huge bump in the road with them, right? So you typically if you're selling a product, you're listing people that are going to say you're doing great. And I think it's pool testing still very early in our region on turnaround, working with, and disruption, stuff like that. So I know Concord's working towards it. And there's another one that Ginkgos was talking about. It's more towards the coast. So.
Mike, what do we know about the percentage of opt-in necessary to make the data useful? I mean, if we only got 3%, statistically, I say we're wasting our time.
Yeah, that's my $1 million question, and it's one of those they dance around as well, because they're going to get the funding no matter what, if they're testing 3 kids or they're testing 1,000 kids. The thing that I'll echo again is the good part. We're doing the symptomatic testing already. And so what they're showing with the asymptomatic pool testing, a couple of the things that they've been saying is once you get it started, more people end up opting in once they see how it is and how it works, and students are happy. But in regards to they don't have that magic number, they're going to say, or what they've been saying is, hey, all of this is a positive, because at any time you catch someone that's positive, it's going to help with mitigation strategies that we have in place. So I would say no one's really stepping up to the plate to give me that magic number. Our nurses internal have said about an 80% number would be significant, obviously, but it's also, if we're doing it once a week and we're not testing until the next Monday, then are we doing it twice a week? Because they've said they can come as much as we want. It's really that plan that with our medical team, the nursing staff, to determine how often in the number.
Great, thank you.
I didn't give you a number.
No, I mean, if it's not there, it's not there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think that's something in our decision we need to think about.
It does vary, and that's the piece they were honest. They said that there was a district with 3%, and then there's another one, I think it was Goffstown, that had a high number, upwards of 60%. I think it was Goffstown. So.
I think Jim alluded to this a meeting or two ago. This is something that we could also consider maybe pool testing for indoor sports. Jim, you mentioned that.
Yeah, I just thought of a place to start. Right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tool potentially.
Yeah, I brought that up at that same superintendent's meeting, and Dr. I know it's Dean.
Cascadin.
Yeah, thank you. I always call it Cascadin, so Cascadin. He's on the NHIAA, so there was going to be discussions even at that level. Again, it's still early, so they're trying to figure out where it fits and, can you require it the same as we do concussion testing and all those things. So definitely part of the puzzle for sure.
Would the company be, I assume the answer is going to be yes because they're a vendor, but would they be willing to do sort of an information night for
Both of
parents who
them.
are interested?
Yep.
And I just wonder, based upon how many families tune into that, and maybe we could do like if you tune in, are you interested? That might give us some preliminary numbers to Rob's question around.
So
What
both.
would an opt-in start to look like? But if we get like 5 people go to the information, it might help in the decision of what to do.
Yeah, and that's some of the things that have helped the Zoom, right? So it's pretty easy to click on it and zoom in if you're interested, and then you go from there. There's been discussion on survey. I don't support a survey. I think if we're going to go, you opt in, and as you can opt in at any point. So that's just an extra layer of work for us in our offices. If we're going to implement it, we should just do an opt in and start and see where it goes. That's my recommendation. So, but both of them said without a doubt information session if they want.
Okay.
I just have a quick question on the UNH one, because you said that they set up a specific location that the students come in and out of. Is that the same for elementary schools as well? That
Yeah, which was-
elementary students would need to be leaving their classrooms,
Well, that's-
we'd have to find additional staff.
So that's what the nurses, when we're talking about narrowing it down, right? So the benefit is you get individual results, but the negative is, you have grades 1, 2 leaving classroom to walk down to the gym or walk down. So, can all students work with once they learn and we show them? Sure, but that takes time. It's like a fire drill. So you train them. If you're opting in, you walk down, you wait in line, and you meet. We would have to have someone there. Again, it's our students, so someone would have to be there. So all those come into play when you're trying to put something like this in place.
Juliet?
This wouldn't work obviously for Harold Martin or Maple Street, but would we be able to request that the vendors come in at a specific time, like Monday advisory when everybody's in the building and can't see teachers anyways?
Yep. So they work around our scheduling.
So that wouldn't be disruptive at all. I think that would be a good time.
And works best, yeah. So the key though is we have 3 buildings. So if the test time at the middle high school is, what time's the virus start? 1:45?
No, 2:20.
2:20ish. So they typically are here a half hour before the time. That means that they would have to coincide earlier with the other 2 buildings. So it's the kind of scheduling, again, all 3 buildings, depending on their staffing and how they can support it.
Any other questions, thoughts, sort of next steps? So what do you think, and Mike, I'm looking at you, sort of, what do you think is an appropriate next step on this?
So we met with UNH yesterday, and that was actually just Ms. Masters and I, so I still need to meet with Jean and Amy to discuss UNH versus Kinko's. And then from there, we can bring a recommendation to you guys, and then we can move on from there, for sure. If you want the information session between now and 2 weeks, I don't know if there's value because I don't know which one we selected, but that's kind of where we are.
Do the board feel comfortable having 2 weeks from now coming back? Mike can make a recommendation, and then we
Yeah,
can,
sure.
and maybe a bit of a plan, work with the company selected to see about
Absolutely.
timing for an info session. Does that sound reasonable?
That sounds great.
Okay, no problem. Next update on safe learning is just the ESSER survey. So we closed the ESSER survey. We had 200 and, I'm looking up at Matt, 215, I think it was about 215, which again, it's the second survey I've had in this district, and it's, again, high numbers. And we had student participation, non-parent participation, community participation. It's just another one of those things that we're kind of checking to solicit where the information is coming. Once we consolidate that data, I'll share it with you guys at the board meeting. We just closed it. I think Matt closed it yesterday. So you'll get the results, and we can discuss. Again, it's that avenue. We have that window to spend ESSER, which is great. So it was some pretty substantial feedback on the targeted areas they'd like to see us work towards. So that was the update on that. And last is tutoring, and I just want to mention it's for families who've been out because of COVID. Remember, we talked about whether it's household quarantine, things like that. And we have several people that have stepped up to work with our students after school. We've been paying them to do after school work, catching them up, keeping them in the loop. And we've been using ESSER funds to do so. So it's pretty good. We've had a couple teachers that have retired that have actually spoke about coming back. So we actually are starting to gather quite a bit of, I'll call it a bullpen in regards to helping support those families. Not perfect yet, but definitely another avenue that we're helping support. So, and that's it for me for Safe Learning Update, unless you guys have questions. Yeah?
Okay. Have we started to collect any vaccination
I
data
knew you were
yet?
going to ask me that. And it's funny, yesterday, you're in my book, and I met with UNH, and then I wasn't able to meet the 1 o'clock meeting with the nurses today.
Yep.
So when we talked about not asking, but
Yep.
somehow soliciting,
Yep.
we're going to try and solicit through updated paperwork, so to
Okay.
speak, through the nursing office. Something simple that goes home that says, if you're comfortable sharing vaccination status, please feel free. It would help us with our data. So
Yep.
I will get it to you, as I'm sure it's going to be part of this. So it's definitely still in the works.
Great.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm praying, hoping that at some point, the vaccination will come out for our kids that are gonna be, 5 to 11. It's been submitted to the PA for emergency use. Do you think it'll be something the school district will be able to do another session of being able to get something in the school district for our students?
Yeah, I've already been working on,
Okay.
with areas, towns, again, we're smaller, so
Yeah.
if we have to partner, so forth and so on. So that's the significance of those meetings. That's why we get together regionally. How can we work together? What can we do? But certainly going to be able to offer it somehow, some way.
Some type of clinic,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah, they're getting
That'd
better
be
at
awesome.
it. It has to do with, supply and demand as well, and where they're going to ship them and all that. But yeah, it's definitely in the works.
And then my other two questions were, how are sports going? Because I get, Mr. Reserve's daily emails.
Yeah.
But is it going well, or is the season going well? I know you were at a game. Does everyone seem to be doing well in terms of the athletes and the parents and traveling and everything?
Yeah, we've been doing really well. And
Great.
what's great with the getting back to league play,
Yep.
right, rather than regional play,
Yep.
is what we lived through last year. The ADs have done a great job of communicating, whether there's a case on our team, case on their team, case on the football team, which is crosstown. So it's all been great communication. Also can honestly say there's been no transmission on teams.
Yep.
So
Great.
that's been great. So far so good.
Awesome.
Actually, not just for us, that would be more of a regional basis. We've been doing
Yeah.
really well.
And then my last question was, because the front page article on the outdoor classrooms was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it
So
was.
how, and it looks great, I see it every weekend. How is usage looking in terms of, are those classrooms both here and at Maple and at Herald, are they being used a lot or a ton? Or
Yeah,
how does it-
so Maple Street's in full force,
Great.
used throughout the day. I see it right out my office. And there's going to be a delay on the Hopkinton School Foundation one
Yeah.
at Harold Martin. I say unintended consequences with the slope
Yeah.
and leveling, all that fun stuff. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure we're doing it right with their money. So
Yeah.
we're working on to make sure that comes out right. And then the tents, right? I mean, we've been forcing them to use it for science, but now it'll be more of a sign-up basis, which allows other people opportunities to come out. It'll open up that schedule. It's interesting how I'll call us a reactionary profession, right? So before it was everyone in, now we're talking about outdoor spacing. So we're still trying to find appropriate times. I think kids like eating lunch outside. I don't think I would disagree with that.
Yep.
So we're making sure that we're still using those. Those tents will be up till Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Spoke to Chief Yale today. They swing by, make sure they do safety checks, all that type of stuff. So outdoor classrooms, I think, is a nice switch for our profession, and our students certainly love it, as you saw. So.
Yeah, it's great. It's
Mhm.
wonderful. Okay.
When do we have the discussion about the use of our facilities for sports? Is that coming in a couple of weeks? What is?
I'm going to give you an update at the superintendent's update.
Okay.
Yep.
Sneak peek.
All right.
Yep.
All right, so the next item is metrics, and so this has been something that we've talked about since August, when we started the safe learning updates and plans. And I just want to thank Dulcie and Norm for volunteering to work on sort of a discussion about how we want to talk about masks in the schools and when to remove them, or what are some ideas for how to sort of adjust course as we go along. So thanks, guys, for taking a stab at this. And so this is a discussion starter.
Are you able to get on that screen?
Yeah, Matt said
Okay,
he was on.
Okay.
sorry. Can you hear her, Matt? She need to pick up a mic. Can you hear me? Yeah. Present?
Can you hear me? Wow. Okay. Great. Okay, so this is the beginning of a multi-week plan to start the conversation. And the goal, which Norma hasn't been through these, so don't tell me, is basically to develop a reasonable, achievable framework, because I think those are very important words to use for evaluating elements of our safe learning plan. We can specify that to literally just say mask usage if we want. On an ongoing basis with an appropriate body of knowledge and resources to educate around and support the proposed framework. And so I think part of what we really want to do is understand what we need to understand, present that across a variety of different factors, and also give ourselves enough time to actually put together like an informed proposal. The things that we thought about was A, just making sure that everyone's clear. There's multiple resources on our site, almost every resource. Multiple places across the country, but obviously being very clear about what is the guidance from the CDC and New Hampshire DHHS. If there are other bodies that people would like us to consider, we could put on the American Association of Pediatrics for sure. But like, what does that look like, and are there changes, making sure we're monitoring that. Then from there, in terms of indicators to consider, we'd want to be able to look at if we can get to actual numbers. Is there literature that we should be understanding around any of these things to put together sort of like a scale or a number or a proposed number or a range. But the things we thought about were community, and the state tends to translate this as county, but transmission rate, in-school incidents, community vaccination rates, student vaccination rates. If we wanted to include something around social and emotional wellness in there, which I think is a harder number to, it's qualitative. And then if there's anything else that we wanted to think about. So this is a big area of discussion. Something we thought about, this is an important piece of conversation that we wanted to start. We've talked a lot about what's good for Hopkinton, for sure, but we also want to think about, are there case studies that we should look at in terms of different masking practices across the state? Trying to think about if they're adjacent or close to being adjacent to Hopkinton, so more looks like our town. Thinking about what were their policies, how are their case rates, how are things looking for them. And that will be sort of like a multi-form thing. And then if we had a process moving forward of this, we think that this is going to be a conversation that we'd like to be able to have over the next several meetings, knowing that we have budget working meetings that are interspersed between us that we won't be talking about this. But really thinking about through the beginning of November, so really the next month, looking at, again, sort of building what I would call like an internal longitudinal dashboard. We have a really snapshot on our site, which we update 3 times a week, but being able to look at that over time for a few of these different factors. And again, reviewing guidance, I don't anticipate, well, I don't know. I have no idea if anything's going to change, but if there are changes in the next 2 weeks, then if we, and we can refactor this based off of our discussions, doing research on case studies, if that's something we want to do, and then if we also wanted to consult with any healthcare professionals, which ranges from like physicians and nurses if we wanted to, which could just include our nurses, or epidemiologists who actually study disease transmission, or if there's anything else there. This is 100% meant to just start a conversation. These are our initial thoughts, so totally open to feedback and to sort of reframing this however we see fit. Should I take questions here? Or should I sit down?
Any questions or thoughts or reactions?
I have a question, thought, I guess, might fit into both categories. So I was curious the other night about what our neighboring states are doing. So with New Hampshire DHHS, I think we all sort of have like, is this what the epidemiologists are saying? Is this a political box? What is going on?
Okay.
So I looked at Mass, and I looked at Vermont, and I looked at Maine, some of which have similar demographics to us and some that don't. And I'm just wondering if there's any value in seeing how they are looking at this problem, or if people feel like, as Mike said, we don't want to look at Arizona. That's a completely different case. But
Right.
Is there any guidance to that?
I tend to amass a lot of information before I try to put together, like a recommendation. So like that's something that I would be very happy to look at, certainly. I don't have to, I think we would both be happy to do it, speaking for Norm, not talking to you. But if everyone's like, I don't think that's important, then I can, just do it. But I think that's something we can certainly do and include as part of like what this process looks like if people are game for it.
I mean, I find it interesting,
Yeah.
if nothing else, so.
Yeah, I guess, it's like, what's the regional conventional wisdom statewide?
Yep.
And, we can,
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I think before we dive in, we just want to know if there's any other section of this that you guys want more expanded or more topic or something like that, because this is what the blueprint is of what we're going to do work on.
No, I think it's good. I guess one of the things I struggle with, and you guys can probably help put some more meat on the bones. Like, so, and I don't want to do what ifs because that's always really challenging. Like, what if this happens or this happens? But, like the CDC recommendations are nationwide. And so they may,
Like scenario
their
analysis.
recommendations may be, whatever they are. And then our on the ground circumstances might be different. And so it's really a question is when we put together a plan, I don't want to say waiting because that may not be the right term, but because it's something like all of these things have to be equal in order for us to do it, or like to some things way more than others as we're thinking this through. Because I could see circumstances where we are today, like either in building or in county, is different than some of the recommendations nationally, and how do we think about that and sort of weigh our decision accordingly.
Yeah, I think doing some scenario analysis, because I think the biggest thing is like whatever set of factors we consider, some of them will have to be linked and they all work within a bigger macrocosm of information and data and environmental context. So, yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
Any other thoughts?
What do you guys think? Andrew? Or
Yeah.
Max and Juliet?
I think it's a really good, I thought it was interesting to look at the case studies. I think that would be really helpful
Yeah.
in figuring out what we should do, just to see how it's going from other places. I think that would be something important.
Yeah, I am also interested by the case studies. I think it's just going to be a lot of interesting information to look at.
Yeah, and I mean, the reality is we're in like a rolling data like we're creating our own database in every school in every district right now of how things are going, and there's a jillion different factors that may or may not be different, but like you sort of have to look at information and do what you can.
I guess. Did you have something, Rob?
I'm just thinking that, maybe the one other thing to put into the mix because of the, the responsibility piece is updates from Primex in terms of is their guidance changing at all as this process goes forward.
So the other thing I just, as you guys work on this and consider, we also don't have to create it so that it's a on again, off again, or
Right.
on off. Like there could be circumstances in which we have more shades of gray. So again, I just use the example when kids are in their seats, maybe we're at a point where we're comfortable with that, but when they're in common areas, and the hallways have masks, and so. Again, it doesn't have to be all these things, and then it's masks off for everybody. But there could be, I don't want to use, again, I use the wrong words all the time. I would say sliding scale, and that's not really what I mean. But are there other touch points within this that you might want to consider, like a slowdown or a step up, if the case may be, depending on the circumstances we decide.
Would that be based on age and location, or just kind of?
Yeah, I guess I'm just tossing it out there for just to consider and think about, like, because it doesn't have to be a universal mask or no mask, but it could be, it could be masks in certain, when there's crowded areas because of health and safety. It doesn't have to be all the time because of, whatever the environmental criteria are, but just something to think about.
I'm just trying to make sure wouldn't we have a different type of scale when we have students that can be vaccinated and students that can't be vaccinated regarding guidance of kind of where we'd go in this?
We don't, I mean, this is all what. sort
Yeah,
of
this is
figure
where
out.
I'm just trying to,
Yeah,
we have different multiple ways of looking at this.
yeah, which I think is like.
Which is up.
Yep, Max.
I don't know if this is the right forum to ask this question, but do we know of any case studies that have done the, like, location style on and off the masks?
There's districts in New Hampshire that have, masks off when you're seated, but in all common areas. I use the word common areas, probably not right either. But, when you're closer than 3 to 6 feet, then you would put a mask on. There's some districts trying that.
Unstructured times.
Thank you, yeah.
What do you call it?
Unstructured times.
Yeah, masks. Okay, yeah, I'm thinking of things. Andrea, did you have any thoughts?
I guess the only other thing I would add to this would be wanting to look at what populations we're talking about. Are we talking about teachers? Are we talking about high school students? Are we talking about elementary school students? And then breaking it out, I guess this gets a little bit into the structured versus unstructured time. Because right now, the universal masking covers everyone at all times.
Yep.
And so a teacher alone in a classroom versus a teacher in a classroom with a bunch of kids. So I guess I would somehow want to capture that. And I also like the idea of like a step up, step down, and something tangible. I would also really want to lean into the achievable. Last year we had a matrix and then it stopped. It didn't work for us. And we had to throw the whole thing out, and that was really confusing for the community. It was upsetting. And so I think that whatever we do create needs to be reasonable and achievable, so that we're not either finding out that it's far too restrictive or far too lenient. And I would also want it to maintain a level of flexibility so that we can kind of respond appropriately.
Yep. Yep.
Any more feedback? Well, thank you. This is a great start. Did you guys get enough feedback from this conversation to sort of keep working on this?
Yeah, I think what we need to, Norm, I think what we need to loop up on is I think, as you guys know, it's really helpful me to have a plan that I then have to check things off against. So I think restructuring sort of what we're doing, given this over the course of the next 3 meetings, we'll sort of see where they're at, but we'll circulate that, and then 2 weeks out, we should be ready to come with the first wave of it.
That sounds great.
And is that first wave of information going to be the review of guidance, or is that going to be
Well, one of the
something a
things
little
I wanted
different?
to do is build that internal longitudinal dashboard, which we might be how we're feeding the dashboard anyway, so we can check it off. But I don't know. We have to think about what's the right way to structure the things we need to do to build a layer that will ultimately lead to a recommendation. But I don't think we can run a lot of scenario analysis, for example, until we've done some of these other things to understand the elements of the scenarios. So, but we will hopefully, by the end of this week, be able to figure out this is what we're hoping to do.
Yeah.
And let people know.
Always have time to do that.
In the meantime, if any board member or anybody in the community has ideas, they could send it to you or Norm, and that'd be great.
And I've had a couple community members already email me and forward them over to Delcy for us to review.
Nice.
Everyone has a great voice in here, so it's great to forward it over.
Thank you so much.
We're good?
Perfect, yeah.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so next on the agenda, superintendent goals.
Thank you. So, thank you guys last 2 weeks ago for finalizing your goals, which then makes the work begin for me. I'm not expecting any more. Really, I'm just presenting you with these. I wasn't anticipating more discussion other than, here's what I've drafted, clearly big bright letters of draft, and then you guys can punch and kick them over the next week or so and send me your feedback, please. I could have listed 1,000 things, to be honest, within each bucket, but I tried to narrow the scope to, obviously, number one would be achievable, but more realistic. And below each one of those subcategories, you know, whether it's A through E or A through D, I think is a little bit more of the specific work. So again, I tried to keep a little bit more of a macro level approach, knowing that the work is the micro level. So feel free to take your time, review those, and please individually email me back thoughts. And then 2 weeks from now, we can discuss them out loud and lock them in so we can then get moving.
Awesome.
So, any questions on the draft?
No.
Rob?
2 questions.
Sure.
One, is any of this hierarchical for you, or is this just a list? And
Yeah, so you notice one of the key points you'll see in there, it says work with directors and administrators. I think that's important to know that we're a small unit and it's more team effort driven. So hierarchical, no, I think it's all important. And I think as you'll see the themes that are coming out there, it's everything we've discussed since July. I don't think there's too much on there that I'm not trying to hit for what we talked about at our retreat. And if there is something, again, please point it out. But these are my notes from July until last week.
Yep.
And just trying to work in what we're trying to accomplish for this year. Some of these goals will probably carry over. That's the, talk about achievable goals. I don't think you're going to go down this list of all, 20, 40, 12, 17 of them. I don't think they'll all be completed by the end of this year, but it's the start to, one of the key ones would be review and develop new or revised practices. And we're consistently doing that with Michelle, trying to learn what they were doing, how they were doing it, and what we need to do moving forward. So, and then your second question.
I'd rather meet than email.
Perfect.
If
Yeah, let's do it.
That's okay.
Yep. Good news, I'll see you a lot this coming week.
That's true.
Any other thoughts on the draft? And then
No.
send your thoughts to Mr. Flynn, Mr. O'Neill.
Never going to live it down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else before we leave the Safe Learning Update agenda? All right. So we'll move on to the consent agenda items, and Mr. Flynn.
Thank you again.
Away.
So we're going to start with personnel. This is an unfortunate one, but Joyce Killens, how do I said that right? Killens, who's been an instructional assistant for quite some time at Harold Martin, is stepping aside. So with heavy heart, we're asking for her acceptance of resignation. And then on the same token, we're starting to fill those holes, which is huge for us as a district. Another thing that came out of that meeting with the local superintendents is we are in really good shape comparatively with staffing. So being able to fill instructional assistant roles is huge. And as you can see, Mary and Sarah, one at Harold and one at Maple. And then I've been trying to sell this for the last couple more meetings, and finally I do not have to sell it anymore because we're moving forward with, we're doing a halftime with John Burns and Carter Rulo for boys middle school soccer. And then I put skate because I feel like everyone knows them as skate, so I'm going to leave that.
Sure do.
So skate for girls middle school soccer. So looking for that as we move forward.
That's great.
Questions on personnel?
Tutor for quarantine students, that's that new this year? Under the personnel? Tutor for quarantine students.
So,
You were talking about that earlier.
yeah, sorry, I spoke about that earlier.
Oh.
So that was under the Safe Learning Plan.
Okay.
That's one of the people that we're hiring to help support students who are, have to self-quarantine because of close contact or are positive, so.
For all 3 schools or just?
That one is going to be specifically for Maple Street. So we're working on finalizing other ones at each building.
Okay, great, so other areas.
Yeah, so the reason why they're on here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is because they're not technically hired by us right now. Is that right with Gordon?
Gordon is already hired.
Okay.
So that's why it's on that sheet.
That sheet, got it.
So this is just an additional duty, if you want to, but it's not a duty, it's an additional role that he's doing.
Yeah.
And there is an ad out, and
posted.
there is a posting for, in general, so that we can have it for Harold and the high school.
We've had a couple retired teachers inquire about it. That's what I spoke about earlier.
And what's the, I guess, what do we pay them for that? Just
$33 an
$33
hour,
an
which
hour.
is the summer curriculum rate in the contract for our teachers.
Thank you.
So it only works when there's quarantine students?
Yeah.
That's, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And it comes out of ESSER funds.
Okay, that's good, okay, okay.
We do offer to the actual classroom teach. We got a lot of things going on, but that's more specifically moving forward, so thank you for catching that.
Anything else
Question?
on personnel?
Personnel.
All right.
All right.
Your report.
Into the superintendent's report. First of all, I want to thank First Student. So another thing that our district have is full staffing on busing, where other districts do not. So again, First Student has done a great job with our district. But talk about being a great vendor. There is the field trip that we were going out back and forth every day, and they gave us one round trip free. So them going out of their way for us is always a nice thing. So I wanted to thank First Student for that. Want to talk about scheduling conflicts. So we found a nice spot here. I think we're all enjoying it, but as we've come to learn, the play will also be coming to town. So just so that you're aware, we're working on finalizing different locations for certain dates, and that'll run from the 26th through the 1st. Now, Jody and I kind of have a plan to have the last meeting here on the 26th, and then it really might only impact November and December. So just want you guys to have a heads up and the community heads up, as if we change, it'll be notified on the agenda. Met with Neil today, great meeting, Neil Cass from the town. Talking about, we came to an agreement on the 26th for the joint meeting. So I know someone's out of town, but in regards to their schedule, that's the one we had to kind of settle on. We can certainly Zoom you in if need be, or however we need to get you there. But
I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. Yeah.
so if we need to, Neil was aware. He said that I would bring it to this board first, and he's going to bring it to his board, and then that's kind of the one what we threw out there. So we would shift our time, right? So the joint meeting would start at 5:30. We would do the meeting afterwards. So
Got it.
is that all right?
Do you know where we would hold that? Will we have it at the town hall?
Well, believe it or not, we kind of talked about maybe, so that's that 26th, and that's why, so we might actually have it in the gym, because it's going to be 2 boards. We're going to have space, so we're trying to lock all that in. Might have to kick basketball out for a night, all those things. So still a work in motion. But once we can confirm the 26th with this board and that board, we'll lock in the location.
Matt just gave you a look. Max just gave you a look. Yeah.
Kick basketball out?
Yeah.
Man, no. Maybe you guys can practice after. That'll keep us on time.
We'd be down.
All right. It's like hockey practices. We practice at 5:30 in the morning.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah. Okay. Another one I want to mention is another passing of someone who worked in the district. Alan Bloomquist was a district treasurer for quite some time. So just a discussion, and thank you to his service, but more importantly, our thoughts and prayers are with his family through this time. Okay. So to Norm's question, I put community use of buildings. We've had several inquiries on community use of the buildings. And what we've been doing is we've been meeting with the community groups and discussing that what we will be requiring of them to use the facility, right? So if we are in, depending on our matrix, universal masking will be required. Cleaning protocols, when you can enter and when you can't enter. So basically, we've been working with each one of those local organizations on when they'll be using it, how they'll be using it, and coming to an agreement with grounds and facilities and that. So I've had 3 meetings this week, and we have some good plans for the farmers market coming back. Met with Skate in regards to the.
Hi, Seth.
Hi, Seth.
Yeah. So, what? What are you guys laughing at?
Yep.
Okay. So we are working with those local companies, but at the same time, we've said if restrictions become tighter, everyone understands that it's kind of a give and flow type of thing. We don't want to compromise our facilities, so making sure that we're putting everything in place the right way. But we also want the community to be able to use the buildings again. So we're doing safe practices. So any questions on that?
So each vendor is going to provide you with how they plan to keep their facilities in a safe environment and all that stuff. So regards to indoor sports, it's high school basketball next year is what we're talking about here.
Okay. You used a different verbiage than me. High set.
High set.
HISA.
Okay, thank you. I'm learning. I just need to be
It's
told
the
once.
best. It's been around forever.
Okay.
I'm a HISA kid.
Got it.
Yep.
I guess the question I have about HISA, has they determined, are they playing outside of Hopkinton, or are they doing Hopkinton versus Hopkinton? It's a little important just to understand if it's gonna be,
So they're working on all those details right now. It seems
Okay.
like most are going to be practicing playing against each other. Most towns, from meeting with him, are same as us. Going to begin open and see how it goes. And each town, well, again, that organization had the meeting the night before we met. So all those answers aren't there yet. A lot of people were still going to meet with superintendents or towns to figure out rules. They were still talking about fans, no fans, only local fans, all those things. So I'm not the manager of that organization. I'm only the manager of the people that are entering it, and if they're going to follow the practices and procedures that we need to put in place. So more specifically, it'd be around cleaning. That would be my highest level of interest on cleaning when they're leaving. It's not our responsibility, right? So we don't have staff on Saturday to clean up after the farmer's market. So they either need to hire an outside vendor, or they need to do the cleaning themselves of the bathrooms, the high traffic areas, all those things, so that school's okay. And if it's not in standing order, then we have to not allow them to come in.
so they're gonna present something to you to review.
Yep.
So there's still plenty of time for this board to be able to see it, or is it strictly?
It's just me. That's my decision.
Okay, your
Yep.
decision,
Yep.
okay.
Has there been a conversation, I'm sure Dan's been thinking about Dan Reserve on indoor, just to go to the school basketball and how that.
So we have a meeting tomorrow at
conversation's
11. That's our
Okay.
first one on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll have more information in a couple of weeks on,
For us.
For us.
Yeah, structurally with the organization, for sure.
okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? So do we have any liability? I know that Rob likes to talk about Primex. So do we have any liability when it comes to outside organizations coming into our building? As far as masking I completely understand cleaning, since we have to be able to
Sure.
use the building. But I'm just wondering, what is our level of, not oversight?
So both organizations agreed to universal masking with me.
Okay.
That's what they agreed to. So Skate said, if that's what you are, that's what we are. So he's going to work on that. Farmers market, same thing, no problem. Liability, it's the same as if before COVID, if they came in and someone fell and split their head, that we have facilities, they fill out binders, like all those things come into play. So remember, we're a community building, so we have to work with community members to use the facilities and at the same time use the coverages. So.
Great.
Okay, any other questions on the community use of buildings?
Nope.
All right. So I'm going to bring up the fairgrounds. Is everyone, okay, so we're going to talk about the fairgrounds. We recently had, the fairgrounds have been closed due to some vandalization, which does impact us as a school district in regards to some of our athletic teams, more specifically in this season, cross-country. I know Norm went to select meeting last night, but more specifically after meeting with Neil today, I guess there's an agreement with the town. They're going to go and speak to them again in regards to the use. And I meet with Dan tomorrow to talk about alternatives for now. But it's kind of one of those in-betweens where it wasn't an agreement between me or the school district. It was an agreement between the town and the select board and the fairgrounds. So we're kind of working through that murky water to see if we can get any real answers, because we initially reached out on August 13th, believe it or not. Prior to any vandalism, prior to anything going down, Dan reached out as he was planning for fall sports, asking for the same permission he does every year. We're going to be doing the training here, we're going to be using the parking lot, all those things. We got no response until after the vandalism. So not sure how it tied or connected, just trying to figure that out, but I wanted to update the board in that matter. And I know, Norm, if you want to speak to it, you can.
Sure. So I went to the select board as a parent last night because I have a son that's into cross country, and I was informed that we have an October 6th meet and that we could not use the fairgrounds. And I was just curious why. And we didn't get the cross-country coach said that we just didn't get permission. I was informed that we had an agreement with the select board, our chair signed with the fairgrounds settlement agreement. And in it, Article 10 clearly says we can use the grounds, but they have discretion and sound authority. That's the language. And the select board said, seems like they made their decision, but they never gave us a reason why we could not. And I was there advocating for our students because I felt that it was important, again, as a parent, because we don't have a place to run up a hill for 11 and 12 years old. We're not going to have 11 people run up Gould Hill to get practice for cross country, to learn how to do a hill. And for me, I just felt like it was a violation of the agreement. That I think that was important for the select board to know because they just didn't give a reason why. And this was back on August 13th. I understand the vandalism happened a couple weeks ago, which I feel sorry for, but I feel that we, the school district, or Dan, or even Mike, shouldn't have some type of reason why, because we only have one meet in Hopkinton. And, we don't have a real good place for it with a hill other than that location. So Sabrina says that she's going to reach out to the chair. I support, if possible. I know you have pet history, which I'm sure you can gladly speak to with Nordic, with the fairgrounds. I was informed today when with talking with Dan. I'm going to let you chime in on that. But if there's any way of anyone here having an opportunity to make it work for October 6th with communication, it would go a long way. And I know it might be tricky, but there's some history, and I would love to see some type of agreement with this board, with the fairgrounds, so we're not having this issue down the road, because I think it could be possible just with the right type of discussion. But not to put you on the spot, but I would inform.
Well, my relationship with the fairground goes back to 2000, and things have changed a lot since then.
Yeah.
So part of that conversation we can have someplace else. But, I think that a large piece of this is insurance for them, and how that's handled, and control of their space. So there's a lot of moving parts there, and most of it is not school related, because most of what we did was for Blackwater Nordic.
Yep.
And the school, we had an agreement with them, but, so.
We have insurance. That's not the issue?
And it's a fairgrounds insurance now. Covers anybody who's there and using their facilities.
Yeah.
So
It's not about our
so it's
insurance.
my
it's
insurance,
their
it's their insurance, and having us on there that's not inside.
It's
Well, I don't
not,
think we should guess. So we
Yeah, I
shouldn't
don't
guess
know, yeah,
what their
yeah.
rationale is.
No, I agree.
I guess I'm just wondering, Mike, after your conversation with Neil, do you think it's appropriate for us to ask if we could be part of any meeting? Because our issues may be different than the town's issues and what was negotiated in the settlement. And I just wonder, rather than asking the town to represent the school districts.
Sure. Let me connect with Neil tomorrow.
I just wonder, if you can make that request
Yeah.
and then we could figure out, how best to do that. 'Cause I kind of agree with you, Norm, that it may be that we want to have a separate conversation with the fairgrounds, because we use it for Nordic, we use it for cross-country, and then we obviously have our high school graduation. There's a lot of shared interest that, the town has done a great job, but I think the district could probably
Yeah.
participate in that conversation. I don't know if we have a different outcome, but it might help.
Perfect. I'll talk to Neil and make sure that we can certainly be a part of the conversation.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Whether it's me or you as the chair, you can represent them, right? Everyone feel comfortable with Jim? Okay. All right.
It's
Do-
been fun negotiating with them in the past.
yeah. Do other teams, other than Nordic, like the soccer team and the field hockey team used to do running back there for warm-ups and stuff, does that not happen?
Soccer used to run hills there. But
Yeah, right? Everyone used to go,
That's
yeah,
right, yeah.
okay. Yep, so I think it's good to know.
They've granted permission to other colleges to use it. That's something that's happened because they provide services at the fair. So I'm just kind of curious why the district is being denied. I just don't understand it. And again, I went there as a parent, as a select board, and they,
Right.
I respect that they have to do their work just like we're talking about now. But
Yeah.
I'd definitely be interested in having a conversation.
All right,
Yeah.
sounds good.
All right, before I get to the last one, fresh off the presses, Aiden Condon scored the game-winning goal. Congratulations. You can put those in the minutes. Last in the update is the cooling study. So I know Mr. Nato's been really excited about this. This is really, again, first approach, really.
Yep.
I already have notes. Yeah, so it's for you and for your eyes to see. They broke it down to 4 options, different price tags. My recommendation certainly would, this will also come to CIP.
Yep.
Finance, all the fun stuff we're doing this week. So that would be the lower level, micro level discussions that we can bring back. But it was more about getting you the information. I came in actually 2 weeks ago, right during the board meeting. So here you go. Take a look at it, and we can digest it as we move along.
Do you want questions to you?
I think it'll come out through our work,
We'll
our
do it
work
on Thursday?
sessions.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
and then we'll bring it back. What'll happen is it'll end up being a board item
Yeah.
agenda eventually.
Yeah.
And I know Michelle has been through it all, so
Yeah.
that's really it. It's in your packet, all right?
Yep.
And that is it for superintendent's update and looking for action to approve.
Before we do so, Michelle, do you have?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
So, a couple things. I have a couple donations, so thank you to the PTA. One is for $1,000 for the Artists in Residence program, which I don't know if anybody's gone like by Maple Street and seen the cool things that they're doing. So thank you for that. And then also $1,200 for the Ladybug and Great Stone Face books, $600 for Harold and $600 for Maple. So those are for approval. And then the other item that's in the packet is, or this item is in the packet, the others aren't, is the August financial statement. It's really early, being that we have a lot of staff that the fingerprints aren't back yet, so they're not encumbered, changes in staff. So this will only get better unless some unforeseeable things happen. Which I don't expect, but, so I just put it that way, that for now, I just had to put a large amount there, not knowing at the time who was as an employee and who was not. And we still have a bunch of, IA positions that are open. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Just one, we already have our fund balance, anticipated fund balance of 175. What's included in there that's already been allocated to that already?
We haven't allocated anything.
So anticipated fund balance for is 175.
Right, so that's just, if you take what we have for revenue that's anticipated and what's expense,
Okay, got it.
yeah,
That's the
it's
difference.
just
Okay,
a balancing item.
got it.
Is this a new format?
No, it's the same
Really?
format.
Seriously?
Yeah,
That was like 2 weeks ago?
yeah,
Are you sure?
same format.
I don't know, man. Oh, maybe we didn't have printouts before. It's great. The printout's really nice. Thank you.
When do we anticipate seeing the new format from what we invested in? Is that coming during the budget process?
So, Michelle has a lot of work to do to be able to do the conversion. So
Okay.
unfortunately, I have to do it, and my goal is to do the conversion before January
You
1st.
said January.
But unfortunately, when we went from 5.2 to 19.4, there was not much test. I had to do testing, not to the extreme of what, there's major changes in this version that requires pages of documents for me to actually go through all kinds of testings. So unfortunately, being that it is budget season and it's early, my priority right now is budget. And so, but anyways, at
When
some
you
point it'll
upgrade
get
14
kicked back again.
versions, it takes time.
Yeah.
So
What? No. No, I'm just-
Yeah, so anyways,
It's a lot. It's a 10.
we're targeting January
Great.
for that. Yep.
yeah.
Awesome.
So the last thing is, the budget committee does not want paper trails anymore. They prefer just stuff that's on the file we can put online, so.
Yeah, so on our website, underneath
Yeah.
department,
Yep. So what I'll do, I'll just end up email to them, and
Perfect.
post it, just so we're not sending them like 90 pages of paper.
great.
They don't want any.
That works for us.
Yeah.
They don't like 90 pages anymore.
Let's save money on supply.
They don't know how to have fun sometimes.
I think
They
this,
don't.
this is fine, but they don't.
That's why they're on the
have
budget
to do it.
committee, Rob.
Yeah.
You guys are brutal.
Sorry. Any other questions for Michelle or for the superintendent?
I have a quick question for you, Michelle. How has it been going with the lunch program? 'Cause I know that breakfast and lunch are free again this year. Have we seen folks taking advantage of that?
Yes, and I will say, kudos to our staff, because a lot of school districts, looking at the data now that we have kind of what we're gonna get for adequacy, which factors into free and reduced, right? A lot of districts did see a decrease in the number of applicants that were qualified for free and reduced from last year because of COVID. We did not, we actually saw an increase. So yeah, we're doing pretty well. You know, I will preface again, it doesn't mean that we will break even. It's far from it because of the fact that there's a certain rate that they're given, and not everybody is taking it. But I mean, certainly, I hear all the time that we are getting a little bit more.
And I would encourage anyone who hasn't filled it out to fill it out. It's a benefit for not only just the family, but for the district as a whole, so that we're able to help support, so.
Yeah,
please
absolutely, and
continue
it
to
is anonymous.
Yep.
Believe me, I mean, I know that there might be some hesitation that it isn't. It absolutely is. And so that's extremely important as well. I remember, you know, back in the day when we had cards, where at least now it's really nobody knows.
Well, I appreciate that breakfast and lunch are free, and so do my kids.
Very much so.
Can I ask a non-finance question?
Sure.
Just following up from 2 weeks ago, how are things with I couldn't hear you guys fully, but how are things going with the Chromebooks and everything? Is that pretty steady?
Yeah, I think the kids were super happy.
I mean,
So
I have not heard any problems since the original thing. I feel like
Okay.
it's
I've been
gone.
working more on the
That's
faculty
great.
side of things.
Got it.
Trying to navigate that. But Matt's awesome at what he does. So we're going to work on that plan. And like we said, it'll be a grandfather type move. And as we move forward to what's going to be happening,
Yeah.
we'll communicate it loud and clear so that people aren't caught off guard when they show up to school or things like that. So.
Awesome. And we had a question about, and I'm brand new to Seesaw,
Yeah.
but the classroom summary function at the end of the day, is that something that Matt can literally do for everyone, or is that teacher by
So
teacher?
we're working on not only just Seesaw, but last year this district used Google, I want to call it Google Parent, but that's not right.
Yeah.
Google
Yeah.
Parent.
Yeah.
Same thing, but we're also navigating back to Aspen, so we're trying to find the new normal.
Yep.
I hate using that sentence, but trying to figure it out,
Yeah.
and we're going to work on that, whether it's grade-based, building-based, how it may be, but it's part of our discussions as an admin team.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I know the parents enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But now, just use the middle high school as an example, we had teachers that went back to Aspen because that's what they'd been using forever. While we still have some living in Google, so we're trying to figure out.
Okay,
figure
that
it
makes sense. That's good
out.
to
I
know.
mean, and Juliet brought it up too. As a
Yeah.
student, sometimes she's going for assignments in Aspen and Google, so
Yeah.
we're trying to find that, where do we want to live?
Right.
And we got to stick with it.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah, for parents it'd be great to know too, because it's
Yeah.
challenging to keep track.
Yep.
Awesome. Any other questions? All right, so is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? We just had a bunch. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you, guys. That was great. All right, so we're at public comment, and so I have one sign up. Allison, thank you so much for signing up. If you could, that'd be great. 'Cause
Oh, but you have to turn it on the bottom. I turned it off. Just press it for like a minute. It takes a
Try again.
60. Yeah.
You got it.
I think you turned it on and off.
Excellent.
There you
How about
go.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I wanted to thank Dulcie and Mike for answering my email about the masking change. There's a lot going on for teachers, you know, and my kid is still not changing her mask on a regular basis every day. And I just think that, or I would just hope that if the district and the board is asking parents to send their kids with a medical device on their face to school, right? But then there's no onus on the district to make sure that PPE is being used properly. It's just concerning. When a few times now when I've picked up my daughter, her mask was so wet that I practically could have wrung it out to get a few drips. I know that's gross, but it is gross. And it's not protecting anyone when her mask is like that. So if the goal is to protect our children, each other, the teachers, my concern is that she's going to get a fungal sinus infection from having a wet mask on, that it's become a mode of transportation for other pathogens and not just COVID. They can, kids can, anybody wearing a wet mask for 8 hours a day can develop lung issues. So even about the way that we're taking off the mask, I walked because I walk from home to get Sienna from school each day, and I saw our kid literally eating his mask. So there's just a lot of protocol that is not being followed when it comes to PPE. My husband's a firefighter, and when he goes on calls, the single-use masks, if they touch it once, if they take it off, it's done. I think that's asking a lot of the district, but I don't think it's asking a lot to ask for at least one mask change per day. And I understand my 8-year-old has some responsibility in this as well, so we talk about it before school. I write a note in her lunchbox. I'm trying to hold up our end of the deal too, but it would be great if the board could institute some sort of policy, to ensure that the PPE is being used properly and is continuing to be effective. One other note, I looked for this meeting for half an hour. It would be great to have some signs of where to the board meeting is. I've never been in the high school, so I literally had to call 3 people to find out where this was. So anyways, just for future reference, signs would be good.
Thank you. I'm glad you found us.
Yes.
Sorry. I think signs is a great idea. Thank you.
I'm not sure signs would work in here.
Oh,
It's
probably,
like
yeah.
a puzzle.
So I have no other sign-ups for public comment. Thank you. I'll hand that to you.
Yep.
And so is there any other business? I know committee updates. I know there's a lot of committee meetings this week coming up. I don't know if anybody has any updates or anything, any other topics you'd like to discuss?
We're close to being done with our building project, but we are gonna look at the science lab tonight and see how close we are.
So are we having like a party or a groundbreaking and stuff?
Yeah, I'm gonna work with that with Jim and Mike.
Big party.
And we are gonna do something like that.
I don't know. Just
Yeah,
can't,
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna do something like that, and we're gonna figure that all out and have details.
yeah.
So, we have a lot of board meetings coming up with the budget, but we can definitely squeeze a time in there, but I'll coordinate with Mike and Jim.
Maybe one of our disruptive meetings, we move it to Harold Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See the new stuff.
And see it. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, we can have a meeting there and same thing, so. We'll get there. We also want to not have a party till we're actually done.
Right, totally. Yeah, don't
Yeah.
do
We
it.
got about a couple months of punch lists that we have to do. I mean, right now it's just a lot of.
Yep.
And Michelle's still going through a lot of POs and reconciliations and stuff.
We can relocate one of the meetings to Harold Martin.
Yeah.
And could you also, well, this might be an insane amount of work, so totally say no. But if people just took pictures around the schools and you can sort of document and post it online, since it's a lower traffic year, you know what I mean? I don't know if the principals or any of the administrators
So
would be
there's
willing to
been-
do that.
There's been
If
a
Bill
lot.
does it, yeah, I know, yeah,
I've been doing it for a year.
yeah,
So I've been sharing everything and
On-
update every week with photos.
on Facebook.
On Facebook. We plan on having some type of portfolio maybe. We have a report where we'll have photos and stuff of what's going on and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But,
Should make a movie.
yeah, a movie. Bill's done a great job. If there's
Yeah.
other additional resources you're thinking of that we can put together, like a collection of photos, maybe we can take what I've taken and put it in there.
No, I was just thinking
But I
finished
do
products,
have,
yeah.
I will be honest, I do have photos from, Procore, is it? Of everything that's been taken. So we can document those and save those if you'd like. They're all on there.
Okay.
We just gotta download it and then we can archive them.
Cool.
But,
Okay.
but the community has been informed, through multiple resources of photos on Facebook, but I know we have different ways of
Yeah,
communicating.
and there's
Yeah,
social
we're-
media's up.
We're going to
So-
start connecting them. Yep.
TikTok.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's Max's job.
cool.
But yeah,
Awesome. Mike, do you have a need for any non-public,
Negotiations.
other than negotiate, is that it?
That's it.
Okay, so we don't have to vote for a non-public, we'll just have a non-meeting on negotiations, following, this meeting and our sojourn over to the science labs. We'll have a non-meeting for negotiations.
perfect.
All right. With that, thank you all for coming, appreciate it, and we're going to adjourn. See you in a couple weeks.
We have to make a motion to adjourn?
I know, I was like.